Thank you for having me. I'll do my best to make it as exciting as possible for about 45 minutes, and then to talk with you afterwards. So, let me set up my PowerPoint. Sorry about that. Yes, I am an experimental neuropsychologist, and I'm very interested in the effects of brain tumors and other insults to the brain on thinking, in particular memory and problem solving. And so I've got a team of colleagues and students who work with me at the University of Ottawa. Our home base is in the School of Psychology. Many of the people listed here are trained to become clinical neuropsychologists, to do assessments of thinking before or after brain surgery, after a brain injury. What I'm going to talk to you about today is work done by those students and me and a bunch of other colleagues here. So when I say we, I mean a dozen or actually 24 of us all working together to try and understand these problems and answer the questions that we'll get to in a minute. In the second half of my presentation this morning, I'm going to talk to you about computer games and smartphone games that are now being marketed. And we're actually working with one of these companies. We just started. One of the students on the list I showed a couple of slides ago is working with the C8 Sciences company, who have a program called Activate. We've just gotten started. I'm not receiving any compensation from them, but I want to put that on the table right now. And so everything that I will talk to you about today is after, is about what comes after the journey that you have been through. So after the diagnosis, after the treatment, now what? As I said at the beginning, brain tumors can have effects on thinking and we focus on memory and problem solving. We've learned about the relationship between the brain and thinking, in part from the bravery of post-surgery survivors, brain tumor survivors. And so I'll tell you a little bit about the kinds of projects that we do, that I've been involved with. And so people come in, they do some memory testing or some problem-solving testing with us, and we look for correspondence between people's strengths and weaknesses in terms of their thinking and what's happened to their brain, where a tumor was, where it was hurt by the tumor, or by the surgery, or what the effects of chemo or radiation therapy were. So that's great. That's part one. Part two, though, I don't want to ignore. I don't want to give short shrift to the potential for change, the potential for recovery. I'm going to imagine, I'm going to assume that when people have heard about the potential for recovery, the focus has often been on language and motor function. And those are very important. Again, depending on where in the brain someone takes a hit, those could be more impaired. What about problem solving, though? What about the ability to remember the fine details, the precise details of exactly what happened? That's very important for day-to-day function, for work, and that's what we're focused on. Can we help people if they have problems in those domains? Can we help recovery? There are companies that are now selling software that they say can do this. So I want to talk to you about the evaluation work that we've started doing on these programs, and then end with a few suggestions, but also some questions for you surrounding these brain training, cognitive training apps for your computer or for your smartphone. Okay, so let's start 500 years ago or so. So this is a drawing of the brain by Leonardo da Vinci. And we have known for hundreds of years what the brain looks like. The gross anatomy of the brain, we had a very good idea of what it looked like from even before Leonardo, for the last 1,000 years or 2,000 years. What's been more difficult is figuring out what does what. So if there's specialization in the brain, we know there is now. What's doing what? We really had no idea until about 100 years ago. And the primary source of our information was working with people who had strokes, who had surgery on the brain, who had brain injuries, and looking at the patterns of deficits that are left behind by brain injuries. So we can now map the brain relatively well. Excuse me. As everyone, maybe a few years ago, you did not know the difference between the temporal lobe and the parietal lobe, and now you've had to learn this, right? This has become important. This should look familiar to everyone. This is the territory that we focus on, the cerebral cortex, and also the cerebellum. This is where this and the limbic system, right underneath the outer surface, the bark on top of your brain. These are the parts of the brain that seem to be most important for complex problem solving and for memory. So this is the territory that we tend to focus on. Now this is a reasonably general map here, a reasonably coarse map. Thanks to studies of, again, post-surgery tumor patients, we've been able to come up with actually more fine-grained, more detailed maps. So this is a map that we currently use, me and our colleagues use, when we're trying to map different parts of the brain to different behavioral and psychological functions. We now know there's often specialization at certainly in the sort of the centimeters cube range. Vision. Vision, back here, hearing, bodily sensation, and then movement, right? Those were mapped out first. We're interested in this zone, so the parietal lobe, which has been relatively mysterious to researchers and to physicians. What exactly does it do? Is there sub-regional specialization? It looks like there is. I've colored in these different zones here that have different responsibilities. And also, I lost my cursor here, the frontal cortex. The frontal cortex was probably the most mysterious part of the brain. We have this general idea of what it does. We now can map relatively specifically, relatively precisely, different functions onto different bits of the frontal cortex, especially the prefrontal cortex. So as I said, we do this thanks in large part to the generosity of survivors. This is a list of people who took part in the study that I have helped with the data analysis. This was run out of the Princess Margaret Hospital in Toronto, and also the University Hospital down there. So 20 people who had tumors in the frontal lobe and in the right frontal lobe, so in the right hemisphere, in the frontal lobe, came in and volunteered to do memory testing and complex problem solving tests with us. Different ages, different backgrounds, different kinds of tumors. Everyone volunteered to take part, and they all got scanned. So we did MRI of the brain, and we were able to see where it had been damaged by the tumor and or the surgery. So we're looking at these brains. These are different slices of the brain. You've also seen that, something like this. And imagine you're looking from the feet up into the brain. So we've got the right hemisphere. Some people had relatively small tumors, and it wasn't too difficult. Not too much brain was damaged taking them out. Look at case 8 here, for example. And other people had larger tumors or more brain needed to be taken out. So it turns out that the size of the lesion, the amount of brain that was damaged, isn't really that strong of a determinant of what people's later on their strengths and weaknesses are. Instead, we found that being able to remember, being able to clearly remember information, these were words on a word list. We had to remember exactly where and when you'd seen each of the words. This was really only hurt by damage to this area here. So on the outside of prefrontal cortex and down towards the bottom. It was only in the people who had damage there that we saw more scores than we thought we should. So we can localize, we can pinpoint the real estate in the brain that supports different mental functions reasonably well, especially if we take what we find with survivors and we put it together with brain imaging studies. So you can look at the brain in action, and we can do brain imaging with these patients or people who haven't had a tumor or brain surgery. And when we put the different pieces of the puzzle together, we understand how the brain is organized. And for me, as an experimental neuropsychologist, this is really very interesting. A good question to answer, to focus on in and of itself. From a more practical or more applied perspective, though, clinical neuropsychologists and neurologists know what to expect in cases of damage to the brain. So if someone has had damage to the right prefrontal cortex, we don't normally think of that as a language area. We're becoming more aware of it being a memory-related area, or an area fundamental for certain memory processes. And then helping surgeons plan surgery. The parietal lobe, as I said, has been reasonably mysterious, but we understand what happens when it's damaged. The frontal lobe has been even more mysterious, and often, at least until very recently, surgeons thought, well, we'll take out we'll plan a route through right prefrontal cortex, or we'll take out right prefrontal cortex. As long as we don't damage motor areas, we'll be okay, because it doesn't really do anything. We know that left frontal cortex is very good for language, right? That's where the rotor area is. Right side, not much is going on there. We don't need to worry about it. The more sensitive we are to what can happen after damage to these different parts of the brain, the easier it is to plan surgery, the less disruptive that will be, and the better we know what to do afterwards. So these studies are of great interest to us. As I said, we have these questions that we can answer, and you may have taken part in one of these studies or consider taking part in one. That's great. We talk about the group average. We talk about the tendency. People in general, if they have a tumor in this part of the right prefrontal cortex, they're going to have these specific memory problems. We tend not to focus on the individual case, but of course, you are interested in your own individual case. I'm interested in my own individual case. And so that's what I want to turn to for a minute, just to segue into our questions about rehabilitation. Again, my sense is that often if motor function and language and balance and vision are fine, then people are often left to their own devices. And a question that can come weeks later, months later, sometimes years later is, wait, am I having problems here? This is probably something that people have asked themselves. We don't necessarily know after someone has been through having a tumor discovered, having it treated. We don't know, whether any problems were caused by the tumor itself, whether they came from the the surgery, the chemotherapy, radiation therapy. Barbara Collins is actually here in Ottawa working on the cognitive effects of cancer versus the potential effects of chemotherapy. And trying to minimize, we learned that chemo has negative effects, trying to minimize the impact that it has. One thing I would say though is it's often hard to gauge for ourselves where we are versus where we were or where we should be, right? So am I just being oversensitive? Am I worried? Am I stressed? Have I always been this way? Have I always had these strengths and weaknesses? Often people are noticing the weaknesses. Is it just that I'm getting older? And aging does have an effect on many of these functions, memory and problem-solving functions I'm talking about today. So I think it goes without saying that if you have one, a trusted family member, friend, colleague, physician is the best person to rely on for feedback about how I'm doing. When we look at self-evaluation of thinking, we often find that people are overconfident. We can do this quite easily. I can have you run through a series of tests, and then I can ask you how you did. And most of us think we did better than we actually did. You may be able to think of contexts or experiences in your own life where this has been the case. After the experience that a lot of you have been through, though, sometimes we become underconfident in our cognition. We really become worried. We think things are worse than they actually are in terms of our own performance. So I would say feedback, of course, from a family member, someone who knows us is invaluable. It's not necessarily the case that any problems that you're experiencing, you think you're experiencing, come from the tumor or the changes in your brain that have taken part. All of these, these are the obvious things your grandmother tells you are important, and these can have a significant effect on memory and problem solving, of course. And so if your stress levels are high, if you're not sleeping, this can hurt memory and problem solving. But let's say those are not the reasons for the challenges that you noticed and that someone else is giving you feedback about. I just can't quite remember things the way I used to, can't organize my thoughts, can't organize my behavior. What can be done? So I'll focus on memory. This is our primary area of interest, our primary topic of interest. So my memory is not as good as it used to be. And maybe it's because I'm a tumor survivor. What should I do? So the first piece of advice I would give is to outsource your memory. Everyone does this, right? People did this before they thought they were having problems thinking. I would not have gotten here this morning if I hadn't outsourced my memory to my smartphone and my calendar. There's no shame in this, and you should feel comfortable doing this. Now, some of you may already have had contact with a rehabilitation neuropsychologist, an occupational therapist, even a physiotherapist, and been taught strategies to improve memory. Now, again, this is usually if someone notices a memory problem or someone else notices a memory problem in them. There are all sorts of things that we can do, these little tricks that will help you boost your memory. And often do so quite dramatically, right? And again, we all know about the repeat the information, think about the meaning, make up a little story, make a mental picture, minimize distraction, minimize multitasking. That may be something that does the trick. If you can't bring something to mind, if you've had an experience, you know something's in your brain and you just can't retrieve it right now, wait and it'll come to you later. These are all actually very effective, incredibly effective. The problem often is that we don't use these strategies. So I came in this morning and met Tracy, right? And should have, if I wanted to remember her name, I should have thought, oh, okay, well, I can imagine tracing an outline around her. Or I can imagine Tracy holding up a big capital letter T, big bright orange capital T. I would be more likely to remember Tracy's name a week or two from now. I didn't do that though. So there's a list of these in the brain injury survival kit. This has been recommended to me a couple of times by rehabilitation workers. It's reasonably good actually. So it's got 365 tips, tools, and tricks to deal with cognitive function loss. And so a lot of these strategies, this is the kind of thing that you'll find in this book. It's available from the public library, and it's on Amazon, for example. It's not too expensive. So outsource your memory to your calendar, your smartphone, no shame in that. Find a couple of mnemonic, memory helping tips or tricks that work for you, or that you think you'll be able to use visually. But that's the problem. We know that strategies work. They work for everybody. They work for people who are having some memory difficulty, maybe after having had a brain injury. They work for university students, and a lot of these strategies get tested on university students first, because they're the people who are available to researchers like me most easily. So yes, they do work, but I've already alluded to this problem. So you meet someone new, and you have to think, oh, okay, this is information I'm going to need to remember later on. And what are the strategies? What's that list of strategies that I'm supposed to use? Oh, okay, here's a good strategy. I'll imagine some action that's related to Tracy's name. Okay, so now I've got to implement the strategy. I've got to imagine tracing around Tracy, and do this while other things are happening around me, maybe, so this becomes a multitasking problem. And oh, did that work? Okay, good. And now I should switch off and not use that strategy anymore until I next phase. That's a lot of work to do. And as I said, we never really, or we often don't remember to go through all those steps. An additional problem is that often when we are taught strategies, they're relatively specific. Right, so when you meet someone, make an association between their name and their face and come up with a word that rhymes, or imagine some action related to their name. So that might help me remember people's names, but that's not going to help me remember what I'm supposed to do tomorrow, or what I have to pick up at the grocery store this afternoon. So strategies are relatively specific, even when we do use them properly. So, in recognition of this problem, there's been a lot of emphasis, maybe a re-emphasis, on trying to boost these mental functions. So wouldn't it be great if we could just make your memory stronger? Instead of giving you tricks on how to compensate for memory that's not so good, we'll just take your memory to the gym and have it pump iron. It'll be better. And you can use it all the time. You don't have to think about it. It will just be stronger. So there's a stream of this kind of work that's coming out of universities, and there's a second stream that is coming out of for-profit businesses. There's an industry that is built up around this. So I want to tell you first about our work that Dr. Stamanova did with us here. She's now Baycrest in Toronto. She was trying out one of these memory boosting programs that is free. It comes from a colleague at another university. We wanted to see whether it would work. So this had been shown in an initial study. If you went through just some memory exercises, day after day after day for a couple of weeks. This was supposed to boost memory in healthy seniors, healthy older adults. We have a memory game. I don't necessarily want to tell you too much about it. I don't think I need to. We have a memory game, and it starts out relatively easily. It's pretty straightforward. People can master it pretty quickly. Then we make it harder. We make it a little bit harder, and a little bit harder, and a little bit harder. And this is akin to going to the gym and lifting up the 1 pound weight and doing an exercise with it. And then when we get strong enough, switching to the 2 pound barbell or dumbbell, and then the 5 pound one, and then the 10 pound one. So we're pushing people's memory to get better and better. So this is one reason we wanted to do this work. This has been shown in one case in seniors. We were wondering whether the injured brain would respond the same way as the intact brain, and that's not necessarily the case. So this study involved about 20 stroke survivors, but I think we can extrapolate reasonably comfortably from stroke to tumors in this case. And again, we had a whole bunch of brave people who had strokes in different areas of the brain come in, go through our training. You can see this is a sampling of what people's brains look like in piloted red, where the stroke damage was. Okay, so we had everybody go through our brain building, memory building exercises. Everyone was able to. They improved on the training itself. But we didn't see much transfer. So we did not we administered some independent memory and thinking tests before the exercises and after the exercises. And we thought, okay, if this memory training is supposed to work, we should see people have a certain score before they go through the exercise, and people's scores should be higher after they've gone through the memory exercises. We didn't actually find that. We didn't find it in the stroke survivors, and we didn't find it in the non-stroke controls. So there's one additional wrinkle in this literature that we're grappling with. Does anyone know who this is? The painter is Rembrandt. And this is the disciple Matthew, the evangelist Matthew. And everyone remembers the Matthew paradox, right? Where everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance, but from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. We are finding what looks like a Matthew paradox in these cognitive training, these memory training studies. So we see that in a group of, let's say, 20 or 50 participants, if anyone is going to improve, it's the people who have pretty strong memory to begin with. The people whose memory is not so hot often don't benefit as much or at all from this training. So we're making the strong people stronger. The not so strong people are not being helped. Now this is incredibly frustrating to us because the rationale for doing this work, our rationale for doing this work is to help people who have memory problems, whose memory is poor enough that we should be investing the time and the energy and the money in helping them, and they're not being helped. It doesn't look like. If anyone's being helped, it's the people with very good memory. Okay, so this one paradigm doesn't look like it's working out for us, but of course that doesn't necessarily mean anything. There are lots of paradigms out there, and as I said, some have come from university researchers, some have come from industry. I would imagine you've seen them all advertised. Does this sound familiar to everyone? Does anyone, can we think of any brand names, any of these companies' names?
Velocity.
Okay, Velocity, yeah. Any others? They're all over the place. I think they're advertising. They advertise on the web, they advertise on TV, I think even during hockey games. I've seen them. So this is becoming a problem, I think. A problem for doctors, a problem for rehabilitation workers, psychologists, OTs, PTs. We don't know, you may not know, whether this brain training program that's being advertised works or not. And this question is coming. So has anyone asked a physician or a healthcare professional, should I be investing in this? Is this worth it? I'm not sure what the answer would be. I can tell you my answer is I'm not a clinician, but I'll unpack my answer in the next 10 minutes here before we finish. Okay, so this question of transfer again. When we ask, my memory's not so good, and I downloaded this app, doctor, is it going to help me? And when a company is advertising and saying our program works, really what we're talking about is transfer. You can play their computer games, and it's going to have a benefit that we'll see elsewhere, right? So, excuse me, in other places, on other tasks, if you're using memory, using the same kinds of memory processes as the ones that were being trained, we should see an improvement, and we should pick this up in everyday activities. We shouldn't have to bring you in and do a very sensitive neuropsychological exam to see any benefits of using these kinds of programs. So will this game make me better in general, or will it make me better at playing this particular game? And that's it. So this question of transfer is the holy grail. This is what we're all looking for. Researchers are looking for it because we want to maximize the benefit of doing this kind of work. And companies are looking for it because it's the key to profit. So as I said, lumosities on this list are dozens and dozens and dozens of competitors out there, all saying that our program works. And often what you'll find is an advertising campaign is launched, and then researchers or watchdogs will take to Twitter and say, be careful, company X is advertising that their software will cure your memory problems, and they charge $25 a month, but don't believe it. And so we'll often end up with this echo chamber of our program works, no it doesn't, yes it does, no it doesn't. And I'm not sure, it often doesn't move beyond that. So how do we find out? So we as researchers, we have a preferred strategy, right? We want the app. Some company claims that this works, or a colleague, as in the previous example I showed you, said that this should work. We need resources, and those are available to me, at least in part, from working at the university, and we need people to take part in studies. We need participants. And then we've got to be very careful about how we look at the effects of this app. Probably the easiest thing to do, or the most convincing thing to do, is run a trial, run an experiment essentially, where we have the app, we compare it against something else that's very similar, and we measure performance, so we measure memory in this case, and we try and make the app condition or the app group and the comparison group or the control group as similar as possible in all other ways but the one crucial way. The other thing we could do is what's called a parametric design. This is like when you do a drug study and you think, okay, a little bit of this drug is okay, it has a good effect, so a little bit more of it has a stronger effect, and oh, at some point we give too much of the drug and that's an overdose. It's unlikely you'll overdose on brain training apps, but that helps us know whether the app is having an effect. A little bit of time, let's say 1 hour a day on the app might have a small effect. Maybe then 2 hours a day has a stronger effect, greater benefit. And so then 4 hours a day, that should do even better, right? That's the kind of question we also like to ask. How do we measure memory? How do we measure cognition? This is something we have to grapple with. But yeah, transfer, this is the key problem. And this is where a lot of studies that have been done already fall down. So people should improve, I just talked about transfer a couple slides ago, people should improve on things other than the program that they're doing, right? Lumosity was the first company name that came to mind. So I do lumosity training. Is that going to help me do better at lumosity? Or help me do better at computer gaming in general? Or is it going to do what I think lumosity are advertising or arguing, which is it's going to make you better at remembering things and reading and making decisions, etc. So we've made progress. So if you think about medications, we've made a lot of progress in understanding their effects, and we need to do the same with these brain training apps. There's very little work that uses a randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blinded design. So these are the basics. I mean, this is like drug trial 101. You have your drug, you think it's going to work, you assign half your people at random to the drug condition, half to the comparison condition. People taking part don't know which of the two they're getting, and the examiners, the evaluators, don't know what's happening. Don't know to which, whether people are being assigned to the treatment or the control, and there's a placebo, right? A sugar pill in the case of a drug study. Excuse me. Oh. Yeah, so it turns out that there are probably placebo effects in these brain training studies, just like there are in studies of medicine. And this is a huge problem for us. One thing that we can do is to use a slightly more elegant design, so we can take half the people assigned to the active treatment, other half the people assigned to the placebo. We can subdivide those two groups and tell half the people in each group, look, this is really going to work. You're in the active group. This will have a big effect on your memory and your thinking in this case. And the other half of people in each of those groups, you know what, you're probably in the comparison group. Don't worry about noticing any changes, any benefits to your memory, not much is going to happen. If we do that, we can tease apart the effects of the cognitive training itself and the effects of expectations. That's something we're working on now, one of my PhD students is focusing on. So placebo effects are potentially huge, they're potentially very influential. We want to make sure that if we're paying money for a brain training app, that it's having the effect that it should, and that there are other ways in which we could help your memory, boost your memory. If we do see that people are helped, they look like they're being helped by these apps, it could just be that succeeding on a simple game on your phone or on your computer is boosting your self-esteem, your self-efficacy. It's fun, right? And maybe your mood is being lifted by this. Some of these involve working together or coming in and visiting university often, so there's this social stimulation component, and physical exercise often goes into it. And then we also, I often feel like I should be doing well, I should be doing better. Someone has given me this program that's supposed to work well, and maybe I had trouble the first time I used it, but I don't want to look like a dummy. It's supposed to be helping. I'm sure it's helping. I'm the kind of person that should help. So this impression management or this sensitivity to social cues is also a huge problem. Even if it does work, and if those previous questions on the previous slide get answered, how long will it work for? Is this something you need to do all your life? Use your brain training app forever? Are we going to actually boost people's abilities or just prevent further decline? And might some people benefit more than others? So I already alluded to this when I talked about the mapping effect in our study. It shows up all over the place, including with these computer and smartphone apps often. And as I said a couple of minutes ago, can you get the same benefit with less training or with an alternative treatment? Like let's say when you don't have to pay for it every month. The difference between working in air quotes, in sort of under the ideal conditions, in a well-controlled lab setting or clinical context, and this kind of intervention working in the real world is huge. And there are some of these programs that work under ideal conditions, but they haven't been taken out and proven in the real world yet. Now you can also argue the other side, and often we're seeing now studies are released, and the bottom line of the study is We tried out this brain training app, we used the design, or one of the designs we're talking about here, and it didn't really do very much. So often the company will come back, just like with drug studies, and say, well, you didn't spend enough time, people didn't spend enough time doing the training, they didn't put enough effort into it, or you just didn't have enough people. There's a subtle boost, a subtle benefit, and you couldn't see it because you only had 8 people. If you had 800 or 8,000, then you would have seen a small but statistically significant benefit. And that's a legitimate question that we need to take into consideration. Okay, so that's our perspective. I love nothing more than to be given one of these apps and given the time and the resources to do one of these studies. But we need you. So we need people to be willing to take part, and, for minimal compensation, if any, and to often go through 5 or 10 or 20 sessions, to download something onto their phone and be willing to log into it every day. The only way that we'll come up with a satisfactory answer is if we have people contributing, people willing to take part. The other thing that has come up in other areas of medicine, so not just with drugs, but in other areas, is that the people doing the evaluating of the intervention, they should have no vested interest in the success of that intervention, right? So we need impartiality, and I can offer that, although I am working with one of these companies, as I said. But that is something that we need to keep in mind. We need not only members of the public, stroke survivors, tumor survivors, people with neurological disease to be willing to take part in these studies, also healthy controls, and we need researchers who are willing to do this work and stay at arm's length from these companies. Okay, so that brings me to my last, really this is a question. I've walked you through how we make decisions, or how we're trying to make decisions about whether these programs work or how well they work. But my question is to you, what do you do, or what should you do, or have you tried to evaluate any of these programs already? About 6 months ago, and I'll ask in a minute. About 6 months ago, a position paper came out from a group of prestigious or well-known researchers at prestigious research institutes saying that these brain games don't work. And then I think 2 weeks later, the opposite message was released by a different set of about 100 prestigious researchers, many of whom work with these brain training companies. Actually, there were a few people who signed both letters. The first letter was an open letter to the public saying, don't waste your money, there's no benefit, there's no proven benefit of these kinds of programs, just don't bother, don't invest even any time or hope in this. And the second letter is, wait, we have to disagree with you, this has enormous potential, the brain's plastic, we're working on it and we're making progress. So if you were to look at, you can Google, consensus on brain training, you'll get one of these statements and then you'll get the other one of these statements. So this doesn't help necessarily. We actually did a survey, so Shayla Rappaport, one of my PhD students, did a survey. We just asked people, this is not a representative sample, so this was word of mouth, people who were using computers. But we asked people, what do you think of these brain training apps? And on average, or as a group, it looks like we're willing to give these companies the benefit of the doubt. So people are mildly optimistic or cautiously optimistic about these brain training apps. And so here's some of the feedback that people gave. Now what we did was also give people a positive message, like the last position statement that we saw about brain training. Oh, it works, it's credible. And then we also gave people a pessimistic or a cautionary message about brain training. And we saw that, yes, people, as soon as they've been exposed to the optimistic message, they say, yes, I'm a little more optimistic, a little more hopeful about brain training. If we give them the cautionary message, people say, oh, well, actually a little less in response to this, a little less optimistic. It looks like we just don't know what to believe, what to make of this industry. So there's all this advertising out there. Does this program work? I know what I do. I do a study. I look at systematic reviews and meta-analyses. That is probably not what you do, but I'll ask in a minute. It seems like there's a need for information that's easy to access, easy to understand, up to date, impartial, I mentioned that a minute ago, and free. And if you've looked for it, I haven't found a source like this. When we do see guidance, when we do see recommendations made by impartial researchers, often the feedback is relatively positive, but you've got to hunt for this. I think the second to last slide I've got here, if you want to make this decision, the first, or if you're thinking about these kinds of programs, the first thing I would ask is, do I have to pay for it? Next, is it claiming to make my cognition better, or is it just claiming to sort of help maintain it and prevent it from declining? The best free source of scientific information is probably the PubMed site, which is run by the US government. You can find essentially every abstract of every article that's been published in a credible, strong scientific journal there. And so you do keyword search, it's a lot like Google. But again, that's a lot of work. If you're interested in company X, to not go beyond Googling company X, but go into the PubMed database, find out if there are any studies that have been published on company X, try and read the abstract. The abstracts are listed for free, and access to the full article, sometimes you have to pay for it. That's a lot of work for everyone to do. This goes where the bottleneck is. So there's a lot of these companies, there's not a lot of research that's out there yet. Elevate is my favorite example. I don't want to pick on them. They're one of the most popular apps for the iPhone, and it's one of these cognitive training, cognitive improvement companies. But last time I looked on PubMed a couple weeks ago, there's nothing. There's no work published in scientific journals on Elevate, saying that Elevate works or saying that Elevate doesn't work. So there's just no information out there for us to use to make an evaluation of whether we should pay for Elevate or not. Okay, so I think that's where I'll leave it, because I'm very curious to hear what people have done so far first to explore and then to evaluate this list of brain training apps. So thank you very much.